Hello and welcome to another episode of the UFOcast. This week talking about a question of priorities. Michael, do you have a synopsis for us?
Yes. The entire synopsis is the one where the kid dies. No, that's not true. I have got an actual synopsis. Sorry about that. That was a spoiler.
Well, I think if you don't know that, then
Yeah.
go ahead and watch the episode.
Actually, in all fairness, do we have I know we're like 8 episodes in, but do we have an official policy on spoilers? Yeah, we discuss everything. Right.
I think our general policy is if it's in the episode we're talking about, then it's not a spoiler, because we hope that if you're listening to this, you've watched the episode before you hear us waffle about it.
That
we
makes
do
complete
occasionally
sense.
We do occasionally allude to things that are coming up, but I don't think we've done anything particularly spoilery.
And it was 50 years ago. Well,
and it was 50 years ago. So
ago,
yeah. So I think we can. Now, my first question for you, Michael.
Oh, sorry, I have actually got a breakdown, but that's beside the point.
You have got a breakdown.
Ask me a
Okay,
question. Go for it.
No, it's just because I've got the episode on at the moment. So there's that bit at the beginning where they're driving around in that car, which looks a bit. I think it's the car from the Secret Service, but I couldn't swear to that.
I'm pretty sure it is. I know for a fact it's not a Bessie. It's
not Bessie.
Not
no, it's a
but it is yellow
car.
and it's lying around. And I've realised something.
Yes.
They're quite frugal producers, and they use whatever's around and whatever's to hand and whatever's available. Hence the reason they've got really cool shadow mobiles, which are all left over from that movie they did, that Doppelganger.
Yes.
So it's like,
cars,
we've got these props that cost a fortune. They're over there parked. Let's use them. Makes complete sense. So it would make complete sense to have access to a roadster of some sort. Let's call it that. And let's just use that. So yeah, I'm going to go for yes, it is. And if it's not, someone can email in and we'll reply to it in the answer, because it just makes sense. It's the equivalent of using the Shadowmobile. So yeah. Let's go for the synopsis thing.
Go ahead.
A terrible choice is facing Ed Straker. His son lies critically injured after a road accident and is in need of drugs that will have to be transported from America. In Ireland, an alien wants to defect to Earth. We'll debate that in a minute. And needs to be saved from a UFO that's chasing him. But there is only one shadow air transporter available to do both tasks. Which should he choose? To save his dying son? Yeah. Or to rescue the defecting alien who may have vital information that would protect the world? Well, debatable. Right. That was obviously my sarcastic notes, but yeah. That's basic. That's what it says in the episode guide, but I'm thinking...
Yes.
Yeah. I think I summed it up better with it's the one where the kid dies and there's an old lady in a cottage with a parrot.
Yes. It's... Okay, so before you watched this episode, did you know anything about it?
Absolutely nothing.
Right.
I didn't know the kid
cry?
would die. I did not cry.
Right.
I did not cry because I've got my isn't everything a bit bleak face on anyway. And that's kind of to be expected. And also, I have been listening to a lot of Big Finish Torchwood and also Survivors, their version of the 1970s TV series, which was also equally bleak, and everyone dies. You know, there are very few characters that make it through all of the seasons on TV, and there's even less make it through all the episodes on audio. They kill off their own central characters left, right, and centre. So I've kind of built up a resilience to it, but it did come as a massive surprise.
Oh, so you thought that he was going to whip out the drug at the last and it was all going to be fine?
This is against the rules of narrative. I know... Well, it's not. It's against the lower rules of narrative. Like say the rules of narrative are like gravity, right? This is more your quantum physics narrative. It still obeys the same rules, but it obeys them on a higher level. It's like, we're defining who Ed is. We're going to give him reasons for being awful. We're going to introduce a bit of his family, and as a story arc, perfectly acceptable. It's like, and I'm sorry to anyone who's annoyed at the Doctor Who stuff, it's like Captain Jack killing off his grandson in Children of Smurfs. it's like
it's
that.
A little bit like that.
It's an important bit narrative-wise for an arc.
Yes.
But it came as a surprise when I was watching this going, oh yeah, it'll arrive on time. But basically, he's being paid back on a global karma kind of a way. Or, slightly more sad, the writer or the producers came along and went, let's do this, let's really put the character through hell. Let's prove that we're an adult program. All of those ones are perfectly reasonable narrative choices, but it came as a surprise to me because I was thinking that I was thinking I had my head round how the series worked.
Right.
It came as a surprise. That's it.
Okay. Interesting, because I forget how I forget what I thought when I first watched this one myself. But I think in the pattern of the series, you've got it fits. You have Paul Foster on the moon with his alien friend. The alien gets killed at the end. You have the fact that they repeatedly at the beginning of this series get aliens and they don't really learn anything about them. You have the fact that Carline's sister was indeed abducted and her organs taken away. So for another episode to end with disaster seems somewhat appropriate for the tone of the show. Oh, it is, and it's not like it isn't a bit of a gut punch. And it was one of these ones where I was expecting, because I now have a daughter, and that's one major thing that's changed since I first saw this episode. I was expecting it to be more affecting. The problem was that I was I think
I know what you're about to say. Is it because the child's slightly annoying?
No, not that. No,
all right,
no,
sorry.
It was more that.
So
I was watching the episode the other morning, in that kind of morning zone of baby being asleep on me, but she woke up just before the kind of climactic bit of the episode, and she was jolly and happy and bouncing up and down as she does in the morning these days.
Yes,
and so at the sort of emotional climax of the episode, I had a jolly baby bouncing up and down on me. And so I had kind of felt the emotion building, and I got slightly teary-eyed at one point, and then suddenly there was this bundle of joy bouncing up and down on me, completely in contrast to what is actually going on in the episode.
Which is what they're for.
Well, yes. But I guess it does, and you know this as a dad as well, but just the anything dealing with the death of a child, particularly when parental choices are involved, it's just really tough to watch.
Yes.
And not what you expect a TV show about aliens to be.
Well, exactly, and
to be dealing with.
Not to bang on about it, but my daughter, I've just realised, it puts things into perspective. My daughter, I'm thinking, was about the same age as yours is now when I was watching and reviewing Children of Earth every night for that week.
Yeah.
Which is probably why I have such a dislike for that story. It is putting two and two together. There are other arguments for that, but we don't need to discuss Torchwood. We're not that kind of podcast. What we are is talking about this, and you are right, but also we're separated by the fact that it is the setup, the way, the locale, the way it's filmed and everything. It's an old piece of film. I do keep reminding myself of that and going, oh yeah, it's definitely, it's the alternative Worth 1980s. Yeah. So I'm still in that, and I still can't separate myself from it as much as I could. So that's all right. Oh, yeah. I had a thought, and you know how random I can be. You know the way that Radio Free Skaro give their episodes small subtitles? Yes. I think this one, if it had that kind of thing, should be called Please Don't Touch the Bird. Because that's what the old blind lady says to the alien. Right, okay.
Please don't touch the bird, yes.
As the listeners can hear, I am not particularly great on the vocal front, so my head is slightly more all over the shop thanks to the anti-cold medication, so please bear with me.
Yes. So this episode is essentially a story of two halves that are sort of weaved into each other. You've got the Straker's kid has been run over, and is going to die because he's got an allergy to antibiotics and they need this antibiotic from the States. So there's that story. And then you've got the other story, which is two UFOs, one's chasing the other one, and it would appear, although we don't find out because the alien never gets to speak, that he is wanting to contact Shadow and tell them we don't know what.
Yes.
The conjecture at the end is that he wants to defect, but the aliens come back and kill him before he can. And he spends a bunch of the episode in this cottage with this blind Irish lady off the coast of Ireland. Should we talk about that bit first?
She doesn't really have that much of an Irish accent.
No, I suspect. In fact, I'll look her up whilst we're talking.
Right. While you're looking her up, because I make a point of not looking the actors and actresses up now because of the whole who watch thing at the end, because I like to challenge myself. Yeah. I keep thinking that that's the old lady from, and I know it's not, but she's from something else that I know I'm familiar with, and it's doing my head in, so you'll be able to tell me. But I kept thinking she was from the Lady Killers, the original better version.
Oh, you mean as in Mrs. Wilberforce?
Yes.
Or one of the other old ladies.
I'm thinking she's one of the other ones. She's not Mrs. Wilberforce.
She's definitely not Mrs. Wilberforce. But you're right.
No.
The whole cottage parrot thing is so, and I had not made that connection before, so thank you for that. Is somewhat reminiscent of the setup for the Lady Killers. If for those unfamiliar with the Lady Killers, watch it.
Yes, just go away and do that now. Stop listening to us. Go away, watch that, come back. That's fine. We've given you permission.
Let's find the full list.
Not
of
the
characters.
new version, quite clearly. Tom Hanks is a lovely man, but he's not Alec Guinness.
Oh, well, I refuse to watch it. No, but she was in Dead of Night.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with Dead of Night, Michael?
What is it?
Dead of Night was the only horror film that Ealing Studios made.
Ooh.
So they're famous for their comedies, including The Lady Killers, but they made a horror film, which I think Scorsese says is one of the scariest films ever. It's an anthology movie which
I love those so much.
Loops around on itself. And it has a particularly freaky story about a ventriloquist dummy that comes to life. And there's also like a golfing story where the ghost of a golfer haunts somebody. I'm not selling it very well. Watch Dead of Night. It's worth it.
You know what? It's ringing too many bells, and I went through such a 1970s horror movie phase when I was at university, and I bought everything. I've got some Italian stuff. But it was the British stuff that I really threw myself into big time. So I will have seen this, and I love those portmanteau films, the ones that are all the ones with Roy Castle in and things like that. And, they're incredible. We could do a whole extra podcast. To be honest, there's now a new Hammer Horror podcast just come out with Paul Cannell, which I'm sure you'll be able to find. I think the first episode went live today. So I haven't actually heard it yet, so I'm very excited because I loved old horror movies. So you're probably right. That's probably where I know her from. But I've got a feeling she was just one of those people who was like rent an old lady. I don't understand how she
was born in 1890.
Excellent.
And died in 1973. So this was UFO was one of her last roles. Though she had plenty in the years following. So she had a bunch of roles in 70, 71, 72, and up to her death in 1973. She was a Scouser. So across the wrong side of the water from Ireland, but she doesn't sound like a Scouser, but nor does she sound particularly Irish.
That's what I forgot. So that's what Spike Milligan said to the Beatles, that everyone was Irish, because he just said that the Scousers are just Irish in disguise. So that was nice. Right, so I am distracting everyone, and we're going out of order as always.
But that's fine. So now you'll laugh. Everybody should laugh at me for this.
Okay.
So I had this thought of like, well, is she actually blind? Right.
Okay.
Was the actress blind? I don't think she was, but I was thinking, well, how do we assess her performance? And I thought, well, a real blind person could tell us. And then I suddenly thought, well, hang on, that's stupid, because the whole thing about being blind is you can't see, so a blind person couldn't tell us how good her performance as a blind person was. If that makes sense.
You could assess the performance by being from a family of someone who is blind.
Yes,
because then you could have seen the episode. So what we're after is someone who's listening to this podcast, the Venn diagram gets smaller, someone who's in a family with a member of the family who's blind, smaller Venn diagram indeed, and also someone who's willing to send us feedback. Getting a bit smaller.
Even smaller pool.
Yeah.
Though I will say thanks again to everybody who has sent us feedback. We've had comments on Facebook, we've had comments on Twitter, we've had emails. Thank you for all the ways that you've got in touch with us over the last few weeks. That's been brilliant. We do need to do another feedback episode. So we're still talking about the UFO and the Irish lady, aren't we?
Yes, we are. We are. We're completely fixated on the Irish lady who isn't Irish.
Yes.
She has got a parrot. She has got a doctor who reveals that. You know the advert breaks. There's an advert break that actually hinges the fade to black and the music sting on the fact that she's blind as if it's the most incredible thing in the world. It's like the music goes dun dun dun, and all she's doing is standing there going, "I'm blind."
I'm blind.
It's just a really weird choice and totally over-egged.
Yes, it is. It is, and again, it's one of those things where you watching it subsequent times, you go, "Well, I know she's blind." And it's one of those things where you go, the first time, did I notice? Because I think when you know she's supposed to be blind, it's quite obvious that she's acting like a blind person, because she reaches out to touch for things before we know that that's what she reveals. So it seems a very odd reveal. Anyway, let's get a bit more focus on this. We've got a different actor playing the alien this week. We've not seen this chap before. Given that we had one guy play the alien, the featured alien for quite a bit thus far. And he basically gets to stand in the cottage and look menacing and not say anything.
And not have very green hands either.
Well, no, but so this is the thing, right? The liquid is for them to breathe in through their helmets, right? So as far as I can tell, it's just in the helmet that the liquid is. So it's only their head which will get dyed green, and their hands won't be.
I thought the liquid filled the entirety of the spacesuit on the inside to help with inertia as well as breathing. The oxygenated liquid allowed them to breathe, but the inertia was cancelled through the liquid, which is what's implied in episode 1 when they say it's what we've been experimenting with, or there are some theories or something.
Yes. I think this episode makes it clear that it's just the head.
That's fine.
Either that or they fail to make up his hands. One or the other.
Well, I also had another theory, but I've just realised it's pointless. But the theory was that the green liquid that helps them breathe affects their vocal cords, so they can't talk very much.
Right.
Or at all, which is why he uses a radio and then realises he can't. Because I'm thinking he's one of the ones that used to be a lot more human. And I think he might have gone home. He might be her son.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's unlikely because he crash lands.
Yes.
He crash lands somewhere on Earth.
My interpretation of what happens is that either they can't talk, or they know that they won't be understood because, I mean, actually, no, it makes more sense that they can't talk. Because why does he go into the cottage? Because if he wants to talk to Shadow, all he has to do is hide in the forest outside or off the shore or somewhere. He just has to hide outside somewhere, right?
Yes.
And broadcast. And so the implication is that the reason he goes into the cottage is because he needs some noise to be transmitted over this radio. And what's the easiest way to do that? Well, the easiest way to do that is to find a person who can speak. And so he goes into the cottage. He looks out by finding a blind woman who can't tell that he's an alien. Sets up the radio and then knows that Shadow will be like, hang on, that alien crashed off Ireland. There's somebody broadcasting from Ireland, and they'll figure it out, which is what they do.
Yes.
And then he goes out for a walk, presumably hoping that Shadow will pick him up before the aliens do. That was my interpretation of it.
It's because there's nothing helps with if you're trying to hide from a flying saucer by announcing where you are.
Exactly.
On a radio.
So,
but,
Well, yes. So I don't know, because he takes his radio with him and it's still making a noise. So he seems to be a slightly incompetent defector, if that's what he's trying to do.
Well,
right?
That's true. Perhaps he's in charge of the invasion plan of the week.
Yes. Oh, you mean this is some kind of ploy to get an alien on the inside? No, but then that would not make sense of them killing him.
No.
Make no sense of them killing him at the end.
No. I meant in the alien on their space station or whatever they have got on their planet.
Right, okay.
He's defected because he's read all of the rest of the plans or something. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah.
Just glancing at my notes, one of the pieces you mentioned earlier, but I didn't interject in, and God forgive me. You know that opening, the very strange opening where there's a woman on the phone, and then there's the sinister man, and then there's the strangulation, and then it cuts to the child who's smiling.
Yeah,
and that is the winner of the world's oddest opening award ever. I'm blown away by how impressively weird that opening is. Well done.
Yes. Well, I mean, it took me by surprise because I was like, this is the episode where the kid dies, like you say. That's what you think of it as.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what's this? What am I watching? And then suddenly you realise, okay, yes, they're on a film set watching it. And then you start to question Straker's parenting because. Yeah. I would not take my child to watch that being filmed, right?
No.
It's a woman being strangled out of a phone box.
We are back to the whole concepts of masculinity thing we were discussing a few weeks ago, where it's like, yeah, I'm going to give him manly things. I've given him a toy boat, and he's bringing him up to be an engineer, and he can take it apart and build it himself. And I'm going to take him to a manly film being shot. Grrr. And then we're going to drive around in cars. Like we're in Top Gear.
Yes, and a fire engine. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So sorry, I just needed to comment on that because I was blown away by how utterly odd and admittedly grabbing it was, because you needed to have here's a relationship we've never mentioned or discussed ever before. We've got to establish how important it is before we take it away in the same episode.
This is one of those things where the order of episodes is interesting because, I mean, you and I know, and viewers will, most of our listeners will probably know, that there is an episode later in the series where we have a flashback to the creation of Shadow and Straker's marriage to Mary, and how we got from there to where we are in this story. But if you're watching in this production order, this DVD order, then this is it. Like you say, we're establishing this from scratch. We didn't know anything about Straker's personal life, and suddenly we find out that he has a son. I mean, we don't even know whether she's his ex-wife. We just know that they had a relationship because she's now Rutland.
John Rutland, yeah.
She's married Stephen Rutland.
Yeah.
And they've and presumably John has been adopted, which is why his name has been changed to Rutland. So we are
dealing with 1970s visitation and divorce law here.
Well, yeah, but this is what I'm saying is that the story doesn't even establish that they were married.
Yeah, true.
We just assume that, but we don't actually know. We just know that they had a relationship.
I must admit, I assumed it.
You're
completely right. Yeah.
No, and obviously we know from future episodes that they indeed were married. But from this episode, all you know is what's communicated by the way that they interact with each other, the looks that they give each other, and this is I want to give David Lane props for this. The direction on those scenes is and the editing on it is brilliant.
Yeah,
because you have all of this emotion and stuff communicated just through looks, through close-ups, through the way that the actors act around each other. And I don't know how you interpreted it, but I got the sense that Mary still has feelings for Ed.
I got that to such an extent that I started making references to episodes of Crossroads and things like that. She really did. The thing is, once you've watched it once, because I watch it once for for a general feel of the plot, and then I watch it again to try and take it apart, because I hate taking it apart on my first watch. That destroys not all enjoyment, but I want to enjoy it first.
Yeah.
Given the nature of the subject, that's debatable, but it's a good story. Yeah. That's fine. I've got no problem with that. But then I start taking it apart. But of course, what you need is, it was such a condensed section at the beginning. It's like, it's as if she's going to come back to him, and then Phil Maddock turns up at the door and reminds her of his existence. The emotions so much, it's like, and then it's the thing which I've written in big letters on my notebook is, can we change what day you're seeing him next month? And you're thinking, my God, he had a shit lawyer. If that's the case, he's allowed to see his kid for one day, once a month.
1 day a month.
How bad the visitation? He's one step off having to meet in a community centre with some people watching over him.
But at the same time, does that not suit who Ed Straker is? Ed Straker is this obsessive dedicated to Shadow, and by the end of the episode, he's made that choice of not telling Freeman that the transport needs to go to London.
Right.
And she says to him, "You always had to leave," and so you get an impression as to why the relationship broke down.
Yes,
don't you? And but at the same time, still in those interactions, right up to the end where it all goes wrong, those early interactions at the house and then in the hospital, you get this real impression that they still care for each other. And Philip Maddock, his performance is quite cold, and I don't feel that you get much of a connection between the two of them, even though they are the two that are now together.
I do not know what's going on with him at all in this. I just don't get it. He's got like 6 lines. He's a fantastic actor. Completely, completely. No, he's not wasted, because you need someone with a bit of presence to be able to pull off the part. But they don't make the best use of him at all. He's incredible.
Maybe he's just grumpy because he's such a small part.
Or perhaps he's grumpy because it's like, oh God, it's the ex-husband who's turned up. I have experienced that when you meet people, when you're observing people. It's like, this is the person, this is the person's ex, this is the person's new boyfriend, and you meet for the first time, and suddenly some fairly soft-spoken men get an extra level of testosterone hit their system, and they'll kind of, their voice goes deeper, and they stand taller, and it's it's almost a marking of the territory kind of thing. And I've seen it a couple of times in my life, and it's a bit weird, because you're sitting there going, I know both of you, and neither of you are like this. Calm down. So, yeah. Oh, right. Now, because I've watched this a few times, I've given some thought to this, and you might not like what I'm about to say. It's Mary's fault. Go on. The whole the incident with the kid is Mary's fault. So, if she hadn't have turned to Ed and said, I think you better go, and made him leave at that point, the kid would have come down, shown him the boat, then he would have left.
Yes, so that is interesting, because I was reading a thread on a UFO Facebook group the other day before I watched this, and this was exactly the line of argument that was going on there. Most people seem to be in agreement, yes, it's Mary's fault, she's weak and feeble, and...
I wouldn't go that far. I would just say the nature of the universe dictates that if she'd done something slightly different... I mean, look at it this way. I was run over 2 years ago. If I hadn't gone to the post office on my way to work to post a script which didn't go anywhere, I would have arrived at work 3 minutes earlier. And if I'd done that, I wouldn't have been hit by a car. So that's the sort of thing that's in my head. Now, if the universe had gone, no, that script was remarkably successful, I would have gone, yeah, fair enough. That's the universe. That's karma. It's not.
Yes.
It's just chaos.
I don't want to go into detail at all.
Yes.
I will just say that a number of years ago, I was part of a team in the job that I was in, and my boss lost his son very tragically in a hit-and-run incident.
Yes.
And people were blaming things left, right, and centre about that.
Yes.
And there was very much, you could always play that, if only such and such had happened, then such and such wouldn't have happened. And it was just very, very hard emotionally. And so I when I saw this thread on the UFO page, and you've just reminded me of it by coming up with it, that just playing the who's to blame in the context of something like this is just makes it worse. And I know this is a fictional situation, so we're not harming anybody because these characters don't exist.
Yes.
But I just find it, in the face of the horrible tragedy of it, that at the very end of this episode, you have these two people have lost their child. They have nothing to connect them anymore, and she does the whole "I never want to see you again" and goes off with her now husband, and you just feel crushed for both of them.
Yes.
And I can imagine that they would both blame themselves, because you could equally say of Straker that he just capitulates to her wishes.
Yeah, every time.
When she says,
because he blames himself.
When she says go, and he goes, well, he could say, no, I Johnny wanted to show it me. It's only going to take a few minutes. I will stay here till he comes down with the boat.
Yeah.
But he doesn't. He gets in the car and drives off. And then you can equally say of the kid, he should know how to manage himself on a road.
He shouldn't be running into a road. That's the first thing you do with a kid. You go, don't run into a road. Especially it's his own street. He knows not to do that.
Yeah.
If you wanted someone to blame, you could blame the person who designed the disc brakes on the sports car. If you wanted, you could go down a million roads and it would be fine. One person who is completely to blame is Ed Straker's complete absence of ability to talk to his friend and go, oh, by the way, my son was run over. At which point Freeman would have gone, don't be silly, go home. Right? Or go to the hospital. You're in no position to be at work. You're a fool. Yeah. I'll sort this out. You've got me as a second in command. I know what I'm doing. Thanks very much. Right? Yes. He could have done that. Or if he'd gone, well, I know I'm misusing company property, but the jet's on its way with the medicine. And Freeman would have gone, leave it with me. I'll make sure no one finds out. That's what friends do.
Yeah.
Right? Misappropriating company funds in order to save your kid. I don't think even there wouldn't be a court martial wouldn't let you past on that one. Right? It would be fine. All that proves is that there's not enough mobiles available. And surely it would have been easier to send the mobiles which are based in England to Ireland than the ones just happen to be in the air. So there are little fiddly issues that I've got with the plot, but it basically comes down to Ed Straker's inability to talk to his friends that causes the kid's death. And to be fair, the antibiotic thing might not have worked. The doctor actually says, as you're probably aware, your son is allergic to antibiotics. Now, if your kid is allergic to antibiotics, or indeed anything, you are more than aware. You know this. It's carved into your DNA as soon as you're told it. You don't go, I know they were telling us, the audience, that's fine. But the doctor actually says, as you're probably aware. And you go, what? Do that again. Do it better. He could have gone, look, as you know, but not probably aware. You might not have been paying any attention when he was in hospital last time. Oh, what a parent's like. I don't know. That annoyed me. That was a bad line.
Yes. Yeah, it was. And
that is my small rant about Ed Straker's inability to talk to his colleagues at all. Because that's, at its core, the annoying bit. Because he should have told someone, and he didn't. So if you want someone to blame, you can blame Ed.
Okay, so yes, I think if we're talking about how it unfolds from the accident onwards, then yes, his inability to, as you say, to share this with anybody is what causes what happens in the end.
Yes,
but I just think that compounds the tragedy, because it just shows how damaged a person he is, and yet he's the heart of the show. Like if UFO is about anybody, it's about him.
Oh yeah, without question. I mean, I think isn't he one of the few people who's in every episode?
Yes, I think there are probably a handful of others, but maybe it is just him.
Yeah, I was going to say,
anyway,
not counting the opening sequence, obviously.
Yes, yeah. So this is a show about him, and it's about the fact that he is wedded to his job, and the fact that he is single-mindedly driven by protecting the Earth from the aliens.
Yeah,
and to hell with the personal cost, and it's it's just tragic and heartbreaking to watch.
No, it is. That aspect
that.
of the storyline is, I mean, that closing sequence, the shot with him in that long shot. I mean, they had to build that entire waiting room in the hospital set.
Yeah.
They use it really well, and that shot of him just being by himself is brilliant. It's a wonderful fade to black. It's really well done. It proves that it's not a kid's show. It ticks all those boxes. But as a podcaster, all I'm thinking is, why are ambulances in the 1980s like American hearses? Because that's a rubbish design. Because they're flat, and even the ambulance driver has to climb out sideways to get out and in. And I'm sure they use that same ambulance later on, but it's rubbish. And that's the kind of thing that's in my head, because I've accepted that that's what the plot is, that's what it's about, this is what happens, that's it. It's because, there is an emotional impact, but the part of me that wants to take the mick kicks in, and I start saying stupid things like about the birds and the parrots and the old lady being abandoned and things. And all right, I had a theory that was the daughter, the son of the old lady, and he'd come home but he couldn't speak anymore, and he had some of his original human memories overriding the alien memories and things like that. And they're just theories. What we've got is a hard-hitting storyline that just works. It demonstrates who Straker is, and that's what the story's actually for. That's the higher level of narrative. It's not about let's kill Straker's kid at all. It's about let's demonstrate who he really is.
Yeah, but in doing so, you have to. So who can we blame for all of this? It's not anybody's fault. It's Tony Barwick's fault for writing an episode that did this to our hero.
Yeah, that's true.
We'll all agree it's Tony Barwick's fault.
It's Tony Barwick's fault, but also I think it's the effects department's fault, because they wanted an excuse to build a new model of an escape pod from a flying saucer.
Oh yes, okay. Well, I'm glad you talked about the model work. There's some beautiful model work in this episode.
There really is.
Particularly the nighttime stuff.
Yeah.
Where you've got the shadow jet flying through the sort of dusky evening and offloading the mobiles. You've got the cottage, because they obviously haven't got the budget to go and film an Irish cottage, so they build a model of one. But you get to see it in the day, you get to see it at night. The skills of the lighting technicians
but I mean,
really show up in this episode.
It's a model of a cottage that doesn't explode in an Anderson thing. Because usually when it's a model of a building, you're thinking, that's not going to last.
They're going to blow it up.
They're going to blow that up later, or something's going to happen. And it's an exterior shot. But they've gone for, we can't find the location. Let's just build it.
Let's just build one.
And you go with it. But it does put you on edge thinking, that old lady's cottage is going up at some point. And it doesn't. That's the surprise. That's the giveaway. There are some lovely stuff, but except when the pod...
she must be none the wiser at the end of this story.
Yeah, I'm sure she gets interviewed by shadow personnel. It'll be a hell of an interrogation.
Yes. Well, it's like that throwaway. I forget which Doctor it was now, but the idea that Stevie Wonder was taken back in time and played the piano on the frozen Thames and was none the wiser because he was blind.
I think it's the same story where the kid dies.
It just seems very cruel. Yes. So, brilliant model work. The other thing that I noticed about this episode, where's Paul Foster gone? So, this feels like an episode from that first block before Foster arrived. Because Gabrielle Drake is back in it. Very briefly, because you get very little moonbase action. But we're back to our original 3 women on the moon, running moonbase.
Yep.
And Foster is not in it. But this
Foster,
is
Freeman.
Freeman, yes, Freeman gets a much bigger role in this. So we've got. It feels like it comes back in that first. But as far as I know, we are roughly following production order, and so it may be that this was written before Foster was cast, but they decided to make it anyway and not rewrite it to have him in. And I guess partly because it has the sort of Freeman Straker dynamic in it, and their depth of their history of friendship. It wouldn't work if you rewrote it to have Foster in that role, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Well, unless you put Foster like flying the Shad Air jet or whatever it is, or running one of the mobiles or something. But you've got some lovely
That's true.
skydiver action, and that's perfectly fine. I mean, let's face it. As the series progresses, they shove him in almost every situation. It's not like, I know he's a test pilot.
Yes.
But it's like, let's put him on skydiver. Let's put him on the moon.
Yeah.
Let's have him drive a mobile. Okay.
Yeah. But I guess that is also partly because Gabriel Drake didn't stick around for the whole series, and neither did Peter Gordino as the pilot of Skydiver, and so there's more room there to have Foster in all those situations. But
yeah, it makes sense.
He's I hadn't really thought about it before, but he's definitely notable by his absence in this episode.
Yeah, I must admit, until right
like
now, hadn't occurred to me at all. But yeah, it does, and I don't know if it's better or worse. It's just different.
Yeah, no, it is just different. It is just different. I like George Sewell, so I appreciate the fact that he gets to do more.
Well, yeah,
because as we said, he gets a bit sidelined when Foster comes on the scene. So.
Right. So, have we said everything we need to say about the episode where the kid dies?
The only other thing, from a technical point of view, so the scenes where Straker and John are driving in the car.
Yeah, right at the very beginning.
So I was trying to work out what technique was used, because I don't know whether it's back projection or whether they've green screened it or blue screened it.
No, it definitely looks like back projection to me. It looks like that ITC episodes of The Saint or something like that, where
it's really noticeable because their hair is of a markedly different colour.
Yeah.
Inside the car, and I don't know whether that's just because of the nature of the filming of it, how the film was kind of laced up, or the way
for me,
it's
it
exposed.
definitely looks like back projection.
Yeah.
But I'm more than willing to be proved wrong. But it had that. There's one shot in the film Aliens where the spaceship, the first shuttle, crashes after they've escaped, and Ripley's standing there with Newton in her arms, and there's a few Marines standing around. And it's the worst back projection in any film ever. But the shot only lasts about 3 seconds, 4 seconds, something like that. And the spaceship crashes in the distance behind them. And it's definitely back projection. And I've always thought, in these years, wouldn't you go back and fix that one effect? So back projection is the one thing that's always stuck out to me. And that's why I feel that, yeah.
Yes. I think
but there was a lot of it around.
I don't know, because to me... those shots look far too stable.
Yeah.
I don't know. Somebody who knows more about the production could tell us whether that's been.
Mind you, though, you're implying
chroma keyed or not.
Yeah, but you're also implying that his car's really cool and smooth. It's a smooth run. So you've got to balance that with it looking real and looking that it's sleek and futuristic. Because, I mean, if you... sorry to bring this back to Doctor Who, but if you watch An Unearthly Child, there's a scene where the car pulls up and Ian and Barbara are chatting in the car, and that was achieved by someone shaking the half a car that they had slightly and going and moving the camera around slightly so it looked as though the car was moving and then stopped. So you can achieve it really simply and really quickly and effectively.
Yes.
By not doing much.
I'm just looking at it and going, does that look like that's a matte line around their heads caused by a green screen, or does it look like back projection? And I just can't tell. It's just very obvious because the grading of it is so different to outside of the car. It's suddenly like, oh yes, his hair is kind of slightly kind of yellowy gingery, but inside the car it's almost white.
I know it's meant to be Ed's son, but on my copy of it, the son's hair, which has clearly been dyed using a slightly different bottle of dye, it's an odd colour blonde. It looks so unlike his dad's blonde.
It's slightly gingery.
Yeah.
Yes.
But then again, that's what I had as a child, so we don't discuss that yet.
The other thing about this episode is, and we're sort of moving into talking actors, but I think I was already aware when I watched this that Straker and let's call them by their names, Suzanne Neve and Ed Bishop had a history together because they were in Portrait of a Lady.
Right.
And I think he actually references this in the commentary that is on Subsmash, on the Blu-ray and the DVD. I don't know how much you know about Portrait of a Lady, but basically it's the story of this young American lady in Europe. I forget what the time period is, but basically he's one of her 3 suitors, and she marries the wrong guy, and he has to kind of go and rescue her from this terrible marriage at the end of the story. Okay. So the two of them had this history of having kind of acted together in a sort of slightly romantic role, and I don't know whether that at all informs what happens in this episode. But I just thought it was interesting when I first saw this. I was like, oh yeah, no, they have a history together, and I think that was like 1968 or 7, so it wasn't that long before that they'd done that together. Ed Bishop with his normal brown hair, so he looks very different. And I think that was the first time I knew what Captain Blue looked like in real life. Was Portrait of a Lady.
So, shall we do the bits at the end? I think so.
Yes, and I think there's lots to talk about in Anderson Watch this week, and the first thing I want to do is to talk about the skydiver crew, because we haven't really talked about them. Well, we've talked about Jeremy Wilkin before.
We have,
because he cropped up in Thunderbirds and Doctor Who
and Star Wars.
But I think it's just worth mentioning the other 2 regular skydiver people.
I think, yes.
Because they crop up quite regularly in UFO. They've not done any other Jerry Anderson stuff, but I just thought we'd mention them. So you've got John Kelly, who we see driving the submarine in this one, and he gets 3 different credits in UFO. He's either credited as skydiver engineer, skydiver technician, or he actually has a name, which is Masters.
Ah.
So that's him, and he I think we've already seen him in a couple of episodes. He was in Identified and Computer Affair, I think. And then you have Georgina Moon, who is skydiver operative Lieutenant Sylvia Howell.
Right.
Okay. And she's the one that she gets to say a few lines in the background in this one. But again, she's in 8 episodes of UFO. I feel it's we need to mention them because they are sort of semi-regulars in the show, even if their parts are quite small. And they hadn't acted for Anderson before and didn't do so again.
Oh, right, fair enough.
So that's them.
Yes.
But let's see. So Andrea Allen, the nurse.
Right.
Do you recognise her, Michael?
I do not recognise her at all. And can I just preempt most of this conversation by saying I only really recognised one person definitely, and a couple of people I thought I've seen them in something else, but I can't tell you if it's definitely anything that we mention.
Right, okay. Well, the reason I say do you recognise her is because you should.
Right.
Because you've watched most of the rest of UFO by now, haven't you?
I have watched most. I haven't watched it all, but I've
right,
seen.
You have watched.
Yes.
So Andrea Allen, who plays the nurse at the hospital, was recast as Moonbase operative Carol Miller.
Ah, but is she wearing a wig?
Yes, she's wearing the purple wig.
That'll be it then. I started wigs and moved down.
And here's the thing. So in production order, in the order that we're watching, this is the first episode in which she appears.
Yeah.
So you could make the case for and we don't know what her name is. She's just called Nurse. You could make the case to say that for whatever reason she then gets recruited to join Shadow and ends up on the moon as a moon-base operative.
Makes sense.
Or you could just say they used the same actress again and she's a totally different character.
Yes, I'm going to go with that one.
You're going to go with that one.
Yeah.
So she's in 3 episodes as that character.
Oh, right, okay.
The other person to talk about who works for Shadow is the actress called Penny Spencer. So I don't know if you noticed her. She was sitting where the Aishia usually sits. You know, the kind of the regular Shadow Control lady. And
let's just call it the person who answers the phones.
Well, no, no, not the person.
No, she's not a communication
upstairs.
Officer. No, not her.
Yeah, the person downstairs.
No, downstairs.
And the reason I want to mention her is because she appeared in the opening episode of UFO, but was not credited.
Right.
And I think she's the one that Freeman leers at when he comes in the base.
I think you're completely right.
for the first time. And it's just, this is the one episode where she actually gets some dialogue and gets to speak.
Oh, well, that's nice.
So, yeah, there you go. The other people, actually, no, there is another actor in Anderson Watch, but I want to come to him at the end because he then leads into Doctor Who Watch.
Right.
But I think we should talk about the behind-the-scenes personnel on this one, because they are both Anderson stalwarts. So, did you recognise the name of the director on this episode, Michael?
David Lane.
David Lane, yes.
Let me see. I didn't.
You didn't, but does that ring a bell?
Well, didn't he do last week's?
No, I think it was Ken Turner
Alan
who
Perry.
did last week's. We've had Alan Perry and Ken Turner, but this is David Lane. He's already. I think he directed maybe the first. No, not the first one. I think he directed Computer Affair, possibly.
Right.
But he directed 8 episodes of UFO, so just under a third of the episodes of UFO. So
he's definitely. I was going to say it does show, especially towards the end, when different directors turn up and do different stuff.
Yes.
That there is definitely. Oh, forgive me for using this term, but there's definitely an auteur feel to some of the episodes.
That's true.
Which you don't always get. You can tell that the directors have been given a lot more freedom. To give their own vision than say other programs.
Yeah.
So if someone's in charge of 8 episodes, like a third of the entire run, their vision is going to permeate more. Does that make sense? So I can see that.
And I think most of his episodes are really good. And just looking at the list, actually, I think he gets to deal with some of the more character pieces. So obviously this was much more to do with the characters. Subsmash, totally about the characters.
Yeah.
Square Triangle, very much about the characters.
Oh, I've got issues with that one.
Well, we'll get to that in a few weeks, won't we? The Man Who Came Back, Computer Affair, and he directed the sequel to this episode, Confetti Check OK. Well, not the sequel, the prequel to this episode, Confetti Check OK. And The Sound of Silence. So very much, it would seem, just by looking at that list, that he was the director they went to and said, you can do characters well.
Yeah, he was the go-to guy for that. Yeah.
For that. Now, are you aware of all of his other Anderson work? Because it's
I am
quite
completely
extensive.
Unaware.
Well, have a guess. Where do you think he started?
No, hang on. If he does emotional stuff, I'm going to say he definitely was, and he did a decent enough job. I'm saying he was definitely hired for The Protectors and for Space 1999.
Very true.
I've got no issues with that because there's a lot of Space 1999 that is a lot of emotional stuff. You've got a lot less. Let's put the word "less" in there for model work for The Protectors, because it's nearly all human character based stuff, right? Yeah. So I would hire him for that. And if he's working
it's very ironic. It's very ironic that you say that.
Yeah.
Because his work on Space 1999 was as a second unit director.
Oh, fair enough.
So probably directing things blowing up and action rather than the character stuff, which is interesting. And his work on The Protectors was as an editor.
But wasn't it a model? Wouldn't that be the model unit for the explosions? Because then you've got your second unit stuff, which is often like the same cast but out of shot. You usually give your second unit work to people you can really count on to just bring in what's needed.
That's true. I suppose we don't know exactly what was needed for what. But yes, that was his role on those two. And you're very correct in saying that those were the two shows that he worked on after UFO.
If you were, I don't know, let's go with some Captain Scarlet.
Yes, so he was definitely involved in Captain Scarlet, both old and new.
Yes.
So they brought him back to do the new Captain Scarlet.
Oh, I love that so much. It was brilliant. It got rid of all of the loopholes and the plot holes that the original had. And they just fixed it. Oh, it was a glorious series.
It is very good. So he directed some of the motion capture stuff on that.
Yeah.
Because you kind of think of it as an animated thing, but actually it was done with actors doing mocap stuff. So he directed a bunch of that. But his work with Jerry Anderson begins on Stingray.
Okay.
So he was an editor on Stingray, and subsequently on Thunderbirds, and as we said, The Protectors and Space 1999.
Yeah.
He directed some episodes of Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet, and he also directed both of the Thunderbirds movies.
Ah.
So Thunderbirds Argo and
I
Thunderbirds
was
6.
actually talking about those last night with my daughter, saying we need to watch those.
And they are glorious, aren't they?
Yeah. Thunderbird 6 especially. I just really love it.
I think Thunderbirds Argo is very slow moving, but I would have loved to have seen it on a big screen because it is. Have you?
Yes, at the Tatler
I am slightly
Cinema.
jealous.
I was a kid as well at the Tatler Cinema in Newcastle. At the top of not Westgate Road, at the top of Northumberland Street, there was a small cinema, and my dad would take me there every Saturday afternoon while my mum went shopping, and that was one of my overriding. It's where I get my love of movies from. It's because he would take me to the cinema to watch B movies and Children's Film Foundation stuff, at a proper cinema every Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
When everyone else in Newcastle was going to see the football match, we'd go there instead. Admittedly, he would fall asleep because he'd been to work all week and that morning. But that is one of my overriding memories of childhood, is watching films. And one of the films that was on, the kids' films, was all of the Thunderbirds films. That was where I think I saw the Peter Cushing Daleks Invasion of Earth film. I didn't see them in the right order, I know that. But I saw them on the big screen when you kind of couldn't. And that was just the best education in filmmaking. It really was. So yeah, I have seen them, and I think I've seen them in film clubs as well. But yeah, they are great on the big screen. They really are.
What is there else to say about David Lane? Well, so he produced Joe 90 and some episodes of The Secret Service, and he wrote an episode of UFO and an episode of Joe 90.
Right.
So the final episode of UFO that he directed, The Sound of Silence, he also wrote it. So we've got that coming up.
We're definitely on auteur territory on that one then.
To look forward to, yes. Tony Barwick, we've already talked about him, writer and script editor for the whole of UFO. He wrote stuff for so much of Jerry Anderson's stuff from Thunderbirds onwards.
Right.
If it was a Jerry Anderson show, he probably wrote for it.
So it's kind of, I know it's the Andersons' vision, but if there's one person in charge of script editing and holding everything together, that's a big job.
Yes, it is a big job. It's a big job. And he was script editor on Captain Scarlet, Joe 90, Summer Secret Service, UFO, and The Protectors.
Yeah.
So he had a long history of script editing with Anderson, and he went all the way through to Dick Spanner and G-Force Intergalactic, which I'd never heard of. But
I've never seen that last one.
Yes, and Space Police, which was the forerunner of Space Precinct.
Yes, I know those I'm familiar with, but that last one, that G-Force thing, haven't they just become available as books?
I have no idea.
I think there was definitely something on Jamie Anderson's Twitter feed about a brand new project based on his dad's old stuff. But rather than go on about it, I'll look it up and I'll report back next time.
So, to finish off Anderson Watch and leading into Doctor Who Watch, because this actor appears in both, we have one final person to talk about, and that is Philip Maddock.
Philip the God Maddock.
Philip the God Maddock, who played Stephen Rutland in this. And let me just fill you in on his Anderson stuff, because I want you to talk about his Doctor Who stuff, if you would, Michael.
Yes.
So he returns in an episode of UFO called Destruction as the ship's captain. We can talk about whether they're the same person when we do that episode. He's in the very first episode of Space 1999.
Right.
As Commander Gorski. And he had previously appeared in Doppelganger, a.k.a. Journey to the Far Side of the Sun, which we've talked about before as the sort of forerunner to UFO in terms of its props and some of its actors.
Yes.
So that was Philip Maddock in UFO and Anderson.
Right.
Well, Michael, tell me about Philip Maddock in Doctor Who.
Right. Well, Philip Maddock, when I was doing my degree, I sent off a few letters asking people to do voiceovers for some of my animation work. And I got 3 replies. And the first one was from Tom Baker saying he was busy. And the second one was from John Perdry saying, yes, come down to my house and you can record something. And the third one was from Phil Maddock going, yes, give my agent a ring and I'm sure we can sort something out. And to my shame, I never got round to contacting Phil Maddock, and now he's no longer with us and I can't ever have him in a film. So that's something I let go and never followed
missed an
up.
Opportunity.
I did get to make John Pertwee's last ever movie, so it swings and roundabouts. But I never got to meet Phil Maddock, which is upsetting me. But moving on. He is famous for having a fantastic voice, B, being the ex-husband of Ruth Maddock, who was in Heidi High, a UK sitcom, and she's a great actress, very underrated. And he also did a lot of really cool work with his incredible Welsh accent. But he's famous in Doctor Who for two major things. First off, he is in Daleks' Invasion of Earth, the movie, playing a Spiv, a kind of Arthur Daly character, referencing early episodes, who tries to get sort of tinned food for the camps, for the labour camps kind of character. He meets a very sticky end. And also he is famous for being in one of my all-time favourite episodes of Doctor Who, which is The Brain of Morbius, where he plays Dr. Solon, the person trying to rebuild Morbius from bits of other aliens. It's kind of Frankenstein. The author liked the script so much he had his name taken off it and changed to Robin Bland. There you go. So anyway, basically that is a fantastic over-the-top performance, and it's well worth seeking out. So that's Phil Maddock from my point of view. Anything to add?
Well, can you give me his other Doctor Who roles?
Oh, has he got more? Hang on. Yes. He's got one where he's it's the Swampies, isn't it?
Yep.
He it's a key. Is it a key to time? Yes, it is a key to time.
It is a key to time.
It's Power of Crawl.
Yep.
It's totally off the top of my head here, and he's got another one.
Have you met? Did you mention his Troughton roles? He's got two roles under Patrick Troughton.
Oh, I didn't mention them. I can only remember one of them, and it's not the Dominators. It's the other one, the Crotons.
It's the Crotons, yes.
Yes, where he plays someone willing to put up with most things. The Crotons is, of course, a commentary on the national curriculum, which is a hilarious gag if you're a teacher, and a Doctor Who fan, which is, again, on the Venn diagram front, quite small.
Yes. And I think my favourite Philip Maddock role is as the Warlord in the War Games.
With his incredible glasses.
With his incredible glasses and the beard, which I can't quite emulate, but I feel that with a beard I do look somewhat like him as the Warlord. And in fact, I did an episode of Tmudwup where I tried to dress up as the Warlord by putting my pyjama top on backwards. Yeah.
I think that needs to be left just there. But yeah, I'd actually forgotten he was the Warlord because the character is so different from anything else that appears, and he's just great.
Yes.
And I also got him mixed up with the guy who was Mr. Meeker in Rent a Ghost, because facially they're very similar in that episode.
Oh, Edward Brayshaw, yes. Because he's called the War Chief, and then there's the Warlord, yes. I think that the fact that the Crotons and the War Games are in the same series as well, and the fact that, so basically Philip Maddock is in that series twice, but he's got his more maybe traditional look with his hair swept back and no beard and no glasses at the beginning of the series in the Crotons, and then at the end of the series he's back with a much kind of shorter haircut, a beard and glasses, and is totally different.
I mean, imagine that. Phil Maddock in a series where he's at the beginning and then a few episodes later he turns up as a different character. When would that happen? Oh yeah, right here on UFO.
Exactly.
So,
did you mention Dad's Army?
Oh, what? Don't tell him your name, Pike.
Yes, don't tell him Pike. I mean, I think we have to mention that for people that don't have any other context for Philip Maddock, is that he's most famous for playing the U-boat captain in that episode of Dad's Army, and Pike does the whole whistle while you work, Hitler is a twerp. Your name, Torval Gorn's a list. What is your name? Don't tell him Pike, being Captain Mannering's response.
Fantastic, yeah.
It's brilliant. Now, before we have to wrap up, because you have to whiz off, there's one more Doctor Who actor in this episode, and you did say you thought you'd spotted somebody, so I want to see if you spotted.
Is it someone
actor.
on the on Skydive? Oh, hang on. I was thinking it's either Skydiver, one of the cast there, or the person who runs over John.
No. Oh, you've missed him. Oh, Michael, you're going to have to hand in your Who credentials.
To be fair, it happens.
So the doctor at the hospital.
Oh, yes. Oh, hang on. No. Ooh. There's an excruciating face that I'm pulling now. Oh, you know what? If it was any other podcast, I'd say tell me next time or let me guess. But we can't, and we're pushed for time. Just put me out my misery.
Peter Halliday.
Yes. No, names don't help.
Right. So, Packer.
Oh, that's it. I'm handing in my Who credentials now.
Yes.
I'm a bad fan.
Peter Halliday had a long and illustrious career in Doctor Who, and I'm going to very quickly run through this because we haven't got much time. So he was Packer in The Invasion, in Patrick Troughton's final series.
Invasion.
No, hang on. Yes, in The Invasion. Following year, he was the voice of the Silurians and the voice of the Ambassadors of Death.
To be fair, you're not going to get me on that one.
In consecutive stories, yep. So with the Silurians in particular, he basically has scenes where he's talking to himself. But with different kind of pitches on his voice, because he's all the Silurians. Then for Carnival of Monsters, he was Pletrak, the leader of the Interminoran
Under a very thick grey makeup.
Commission. All that grey makeup, yeah. City of Death, he is the soldier who brings the thumbscrews to interrogate Tom Baker
oh, good lord, yes. I feel so stupid.
I'm paid to fight. I'm paid to fight. And then his final appearance, and it chimes with this episode because he's blind. He plays the blind vicar who buries Omega, the Hand of Omega, in remembrance of the Daleks. He is, yes.
Well, I am very impressed.
And in this episode of UFO, he was the doctor at the hospital.
I am absolutely impressed, and I feel humbled and slightly annoyed at myself. I genuinely do.
It's okay. We all have these moments.
I'm going to have to earn my credentials back by doing another 700 Tin Dog podcasts.
Yes. Sadly, no Prisoner Watch this week. Still no Prisoner Connections yet.
Indeed.
Forthcoming. There will be some more. There definitely are more to come, but not this week. And next time we will be looking at episode 9, which I believe is called
Ordeal.
And Paul Foster is definitely back in that one.
I was about to give you my one-sentence breakdown, but that genuinely is a spoiler, so I won't.
I can imagine what it might be. Yes, it is a bit of a spoiler. Yeah. So, until next time, be seeing you.
Be seeing you.
You have been listening to the UFOcast with me, Luke, from Tmudwup.
And me, Michael, from the Tin Dog Podcast.
Please get in touch with the show. Let us know what you think and any feedback you might have at ufocast@yahoo.com.
Or on Twitter at UFO_cast. Available on Stitcher and iTunes.